Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another MEF webinar all about flash calling. To give your introduction and to kind of set the scene for us today, I have Anurag Aggarwal, who is from GTS and is also the CTO of GTS, or sorry, I should say the Chief Growth Officer of GTS. Anurag, do you want to take it away?
Sure, Ross. Hi, everyone. I look forward to having a quick presentation where I'll be talking about our session today. Ross, can you put up the slides? Yeah, perfect. And if you can just put it in full screen mode. Yeah, that's good. So, just going back to the topic, Ross. So, again, a warm welcome to everyone. We have a topic today wherein we are talking about the threat of flash calls and the revenue leakage is expected to reach about $1.3 billion. And what are some of the solutions that mobile operators can work around that? I'm Anurag Aggarwal, Chief Growth Officer at Teleservices, and also a global board member at MEF. Moving on. So a quick understanding of what exactly is flash call authentication. So we are all used to downloading an app and receiving a one-time password, typically as an SMS. We enter that one-time password into the text box of the app and we get authenticated. Simple, right? But today there are new mechanisms of authentication which are also taking over the market. There are certain pros and cons of them, and that's what I'm here to talk about. So in the case of flash call authentication, instead of an SMS, the enterprise OTT app, that is, they send out a flash call validation request. And once that validation request is sent out, as we go to step 2, the flash call provider here generates a call. And that call has a specific MSISDN, what we also call the originating address. And that MSISDN is used to identify the user. Moving on, that call is then put across to the, moving back to the previous slide. Yeah, moving on to step 3. The mobile operator now receives, the end user's mobile operator receives this flash call with the A number showing as that generated by the flash call provider. And the same is then used by the app to authenticate. Now, typically, the CLI or the caller ID is used, and thereby automatically the end user gets authenticated that, yes, it's a genuine person who is authenticating themselves onto the enterprise's app. And then in that manner, the flash call authentication mechanism takes place. Moving on. So why is flash call authentication becoming very popular? One of the primary reasons is, as you can see in the underlying portion, and this has been taken from the Orange International Carrier website, and we also have Kandara today in the panel from Orange, so he can also talk more about it. But what is flash calls plus and minus? So if you see the underlying portion, we talk about how through a flash call, an enterprise and the end user both have an enhanced user experience. What that means is that typically an SMS has a certain friction attached to it. When you receive an SMS, you have to manually take that code, clumsily often punch it into the app, and thereby there is a possibility of a failure, or sometimes even that SMS not reaching you, causing further frustrations. Typically, in a flash call scenario, that doesn't occur, and the entire flash call process happens almost seamlessly without any user intervention. Thereby, it is what we call a sort of a frictionless mechanism for an enterprise to authenticate its user. Over and above that, it's often also cheaper, or rather much cheaper, and that's what we'll be talking about further. So moving on. So this is where the problem comes in. While it is a great mechanism for an end user authentication, however, there are certain challenges which come into play, especially on the operator side. The operator is typically expected to receive an A2P SMS for authentication, which are your traditional mechanisms for authentication. However, in the flash call, which is typically like a missed call, there is a very, very strong probability that the operator would not be receiving any revenue. And rather, the messaging revenue is being converted to a nearly zero or an absolute zero call revenue. Thereby, the operator is standing to lose A2P messaging revenue. Over and above that, since the voice network is being utilized and as flash call operations start to scale, one would definitely experience dipping in the QoS, which is the quality of service in the voice network as a result of congestion by way too many flash calls being generated. So these are the two key problems about messaging revenue impact and the QoS related impact. Moving on. So, Ross, moving to the next slide. Yep. All right. And in terms of numbers, where are we in terms of what is the impact of these flash calls? So while today flash calls still appears to be not a very, very large problem, and we've seen that if I speak personally out of my experience of speaking to a large number of operators internationally, often operators come back and have a simple pushback saying, hey, we don't see flash calls as a very large issue today. But let me tell you to all those who are listening to this session, as per GSMA, it is actually expected that flash calls, and that is A2P voice as it's mentioned out here, is expected to increase 25 times in the next 4 years. Well, that's a significant impact, and that's something which would definitely create a dent. When we talk about how much dent, look at the bottom right, where Juniper has done a research and found that over the next 5 years, the operators are expected to lose over $1.3 billion. I'm guessing now you find that a reasonable dent, right? And that's what we're here to discuss today, about the impact, or rather this very high revenue impact, which is going to impact operators, and what are the solutions. So before we hand over, one final slide about what are some of the solutions in the market which are there. So here are certain possible approaches to tackle flash calls. First and foremost, it is possible that operators can make use of numbering intelligence. There are databases which are dynamically getting updated with a large number of A numbers or MSISDNs, which are often unallocated series or have been found through other voice fraud mechanisms or voice fraud identification mechanisms, which are being used today to create these flash calls fraudulently. If operators are able to find mechanisms to get this numbering intelligence, yes, that's definitely one way to identify possible fraudulent flash calls. However, this also becomes a static activity beyond a point, because as expected, the fraudsters have a number of ways to circumvent this. Then, of course, we have the widely known stir-shaken approach, which is used in the voice fraud industry. Again, this is a mechanism which can help in identifying that whether a call which is being generated is a genuine P2P call or is it an A2P flash call, which should be blocked. Thirdly, of course, there is a post-facto analysis of option available. Again, as the name is post-facto, it is not effective in immediate blocking, identification and blocking of flash calls. This is the analysis of process CDRs, which can also be a mechanism of figuring out that, okay, in within an operator's network within a month, so many percentage of missed call CDRs are being generated, and based on the duration of the missed call, often it can be brought out that, okay, this is possibly the number of flash calls which are there. And finally, our dear artificial intelligence. So there are AI ML algorithms also in place, which along with analysis of live call signaling parameters, also have the ability to identify certain flash calls that might be entering into a network. So these are a couple of approaches. Are any of these approaches wholesome? No. There are certain solutions in the market which make use of all these various approaches put together, and we are here to talk about that. So a quick handover to Ross, and before I do that, the final slide where we talk about today's panelists. So Ross, over to you.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you, Anurag, for the introduction. I appreciate it. Anurag is MEF board member, so he's very involved at all things MEF. Before we get into discussion, I'll just jump off the screen share for a moment. So thank you for setting the scene again. If you're not familiar with the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, we are a not-for-profit trade body all about supporting telecoms ecosystem, and a lot of our members are A2P companies or are in and around the business messaging space. And this is a topic that gets a lot of attention within our working groups and our webinars and our events, and clearly now because there's many of you watching. So if you have any questions, feel free. You should see a Q&A. Feel free to ask any, and we'll try and answer them on the fly. Also, I just wanted to mention, so as I said, we're member-led. So all of our members, such as GTS, who are kindly supporting this webinar, they're the ones who provide this excellent content for you guys. And one document that our members put together last year was the A2P, was the flash call opportunity or threat document, which I'll post in the chat in a moment. But it's a really useful resource if you want to learn more about this really pressing topic. But yeah, we're here to discuss this $1.3 billion elephant in the room. So we have some experts here from all across the ecosystem. So first we have our MNOs. So we have Kandara Samphon. He is the head of international partnerships at Orange. So how are you doing, Kandara? We have Nadir Patel, who is the general manager carrier of Omantel. Hey, Nadir. And then we have Ranganathan, who's the CTO of GTS Techlabs. Good to see you. So, and then we have some, aggregators as well. So we have Simon, who is the VP of Wholesale Messaging at Clickatell. How are we all doing?
Good.
Excellent.
Nice to be here, Ross.
Yeah, you're welcome to be here. So getting straight into the meat of it, Kandara, so from the operator's point of view, I'm curious about your thoughts about what you just saw, your point of view of Flash Call in general, and how is Orange kind of looking at things and trying to understand it from the customer's point of view?
So thank you, Russ. So hi, everyone, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be in this webinar. So first, I'd like to say that we have to act. I mean, we cannot, of course, stay by doing nothing. We have to show the industry that we're doing something. We have to curb down what's going on with this revenue bypass leakage, call it as you want. But what's happening with flash calls should be dealt with. And I think the whole industry is holding its breath. I mean, we're waiting to see the figures coming up. As for us, Orange, we have today few deployments in which we're implementing both solutions. I mean, monetization or disruption. I think we're going to talk about it a bit later. Monetization, I mean, charging for flash calls, basically, or disruption, preventing the flash call from happening and making sure that they go through the traditional A2P revenue generating path. So we have to act. We have to show the industry that we're curbing down the situation, that we're in control, and we all wait to see the forecast and the reality of the forecast. Of course, we've seen the Juniper forecast, and most of the forecasts come from people who sell services on basically acting on flash calls. So it's a bit like a gold rush. There's lots of people going to make money out of services that are going to be sold. I would like to say, but maybe we'll get into the more details a bit later, but any solution is risky. Whether you want to monetize or whether you want to disrupt, it's going to be a risky venture in which you're going to get. It's important that we make aware our customers or MNOs, or we make aware all our stakeholders that there are risks to each approach. But we can come to it after. And I will say it's a labor-intensive work. Working on flash calls starting to be labor-intensive, and we anticipate as well that this is only the beginning of new challenges coming into the A2P business. I mean, we feel that the messaging business is kind of reaching more or less or soon or very soon the top of the curve. So it's going to level off, and it's going to be more and more challenged by many bypass schemes, many fraud. The cycles between two frauds, innovative frauds coming on the market are going to be more shorter and shorter. As soon as you react to one other is going to pop up, and it's going to be a very interesting game we're playing. So we might drill into more of the subject I have I'm mentioning, but this is as the start point, my introduction message that will be that we are all acting. And we are curbing down actually the trend. But let's see, the cost of doing it is very problematic. I mean, acting is labor intensive, requires huge efforts, and cost and benefits. That's the question mark.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you said, you hit the nail on the head. I think not doing something is making a choice. So you can either do something or not do something, but there is a lot of labor involved and a lot of money to kind of solve the solution, whatever stance you take on it, frankly. Nadir, I want to hand that over to you as well. So obviously, Omantel is a main sort of MNO in Oman. Does that what Kandara said ring true? And also, I'd like to hear from the MENA perspective as well.
Sure. Hi, good evening, and thank you, MEF and GTS, for giving this opportunity once again to have a discussion on this burning topic in the industry, as they say it. Well, we don't deny in the Middle East region also that flash calls are not happening. I'm sure it's happening everywhere across the region. The issues that we mainly see is the detection of those flash calls, and the next question is monetizing them. Because the moment you start putting monetization policies on flash calls, things are going to get complicated. Somebody is doing or using the flash calls because they don't want to pay. And the moment we say that you have to pay for it, they're going to find something else where they won't have to pay. The numbers shared in the slide by Anurag are quite staggering. I don't know whether I can validate those numbers, but I don't think that flash calls are going to grow 25-30% in the coming future, because we are seeing WhatsApp and Viber coming out with their own methods of passing through not only OTP messages, but transactional messages also, and promotional messages. They have come out with their price list. They are offering enterprise customers an opportunity, instead of going through flash calls or SMSs, to reach out to their customer base through WhatsApp. So we are seeing this happen in the local market. For example, in Oman, we are seeing that a few enterprise customers have decided to opt for the WhatsApp mode of communication and have stopped using the messaging. So this is the fun of, or this is the flavor of the technology industry, that things keep evolving, things keep changing. We saw messages first, then we saw text to calls, where the SMS was converted to a text, to a call, and then terminated as an OTP call to a customer, flash calls. And now we are seeing these new innovations coming in place. So yeah, we have to gear up and be ready to counter these new innovations, or tie up with them and see how we can benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that note, I have a question that came in from Muhammad. Maybe Ranga, you could answer this one. He's asking, how does flash call monetization mechanism actually work, and have GTS already implemented this?
Okay, thanks for having me here. So probably, am I in the sequence of event speakers, or will allow Seaman and then I'll speak over? How do you prefer us?
Oh, well, go ahead. I mean, we can go free for all. I don't mind, but I'll try and keep some sort of order.
Okay, thanks. Okay, while I address that question in entirety, prior to that, I'd like to give some background about what other speakers are not talking about. Anurag spoke quite lengthy in terms of how flash call is eating up, and what is it doing. Generally, if we see to take the analogy, we see the evolution in the industry happening from 2G, 3G, 4G, and so on and so forth. And the surrounding IT ecosystems and the usage are also taking an evolution. What is important in the industry, when we see is, there is some sort of a robustness which is being built when you stabilize an evolution. For example, 3G, there is some robustness is built in the system. There is 4G, then there is some robustness. What happens is then the surrounding applications or use cases getting evolved. But when there is a perturbance or a disturbance which disturbs the robustness of the system, either could be innovation or whatever, disruption or whatever, then your robustness shakes. That means your existing 3G or 4G or associated network is not doing or not getting you generate revenue what is supposed to generate, because there is some alternative path people have found. Then it is a time that we think of as a technologist, how do we either arrest that or how do we monetize that? All right. So that's where technology plays a very important role in that way. So now people have an apprehension whether what happens. See, generally the trend is there is something called an infra effect and the ultra effect. The infra effect is when the signals of the effects are showing which is not visible, or even though it is visible, not noticed by people. Ultra is when it has taken a huge step and it is actually hitting the revenue or any effect. So from the infra to ultra, when it makes a transition, that's where we start talking about it. The flash call is in that journey from infra to ultra. So now this is the time where operators and enterprises have to think about how do we use technology either to monetize or act as a deterrent. Okay, there are a lot of technologies, either it could be AML based or, it could be, there are various mechanisms which are available, and it's the time. Otherwise, what happens? It goes into hydro-headed monster. And also it gives rise to various variants of it. Like, Nadir mentioned, there is a WhatsApp is coming up with various mechanisms. What they're actually doing is, the moment they diverted the A2P revenue by the flash call introduction, when people are going ahead and not trying to prevent flash call, they're already one step ahead and trying to do something else. So this is where the robustness is being shaken by the technology as the evolution happens through innovation or disruption. So in that stage, the better way is you start either use the technology, either monetize or curb or act as a deterrence. That depends on the strategy of an organization. But technologists, as we do, is we enable, it's like giving a knife to both police and thief. That's a technologist role in a way to put it across. So in hence, technology plays a very important role. And the question to answer is how it we do it. The predominant way to understand how do we act as a deterrence or detect or block or monetize is understanding the signature of the call, the nature of the call. You have to understand the underlying technology in with which this flash calls are being generated. Okay, and either whether it comes through SIP mode or SIGTRAN mode or however mode. So once you understand that, then you need to think of what kind of a solution can be applied. And yes, of course, GT has deployed in a couple of large operators in Africa, especially in Northern Africa, and we have been quite successful, and our success results are very high. I would say that. Yeah. Hope that answers a particular question. So is there any other question answer?
I think I think you got it. I want to talk to Simon because he hasn't had a chance to talk yet. Simon from Clickatell. From the SMS aggregator sort of perspective, do you think that the user experience of flash call is worse than that of A2P SMS?
Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me on the webinar today. Thanks to Mef, Anurag, and the GTS family to include Clickatell in today's discussion, which I think it's a very important discussion. So thanks for that first. Second of all, I think if I can just come back on the question asked, if I may, it's not so much the user experience. Already in A2P today in delivery, we are dealing with not near perfect conversion rates. That's due to network factors, mobile network operator effect, filtering. So we're dealing with sort of an 80% conversion rate plus. So 20% of users interacting on social apps are not getting their PIN and they're retrying for whatever reason. So, the user experience is not perfect today or as it is. Given that the networks are the backbone in the value chain in terms of enabling the authentication, there is probably a level of error rate as well with the flash calling. I can't talk to MNO quality of service statistics, but I think with anything that's offered as a solution to authenticate, will have a quality element and needs to be measured. I think for me and Clickatell, or for Clickatell, we've started our pivot to counteract sort of what's happening in A2P. We've really pivoted to be a chat commerce platform as a service, and really, as we're engaging brands, is we're actually offering alternative channels in which brands can go and authenticate their customers and sort of track their customers and that. But servicing large big techs, it's another story. I think from our side, from where we sit, it's really the consistency in the business and commercial models. So I've seen a plethora of offers, let me just say, across my desk, where it's a subscription model. It's a buy one, buy a bundle of voice call, and it's very, very clear the industry is scrambling. Now, these are obviously either I don't want to call them first movers, because that normally talks to real innovation, but this really talks to guys that are really going for the quick money up front first, trying to lock in some of the short-term revenues available. But my biggest concern is we're just shifting the problem from Peter to Paul, right? We've got A2P rates flying through the roof. Not too long ago, you had revenues at 2-3 cents a message, firewall proliferation at 71% plus. I think when I last checked, I stand to be corrected on the stats, please. But now you're dealing with high termination rates, which is going to force the total cost to serve, and for big techs to look at their total cost to serve. So naturally, the customers out there that have these large million subscriber bases in multiple countries are going to look at alternate authentication mechanisms. I think as a player in the ecosystem, where the MNOs can help us is accessibility, right? Making it accessible, uniformity in terms of what there is. And I'm not aware today, and I don't specialize in voice, so I stand out of my depth here today, but I do know there is no uniformity on the billing of a missed call, a 0-second call. And I think that's the fundamentally where the fraud element comes in, what Rajan was saying, and those things that, if there was just a billing element, then, people can then go and leverage their own commercial contract, leverage what they've done, the investments that they've made, large carrier procurement teams, and then go engage the operators. I think, because there's a potential no cost associated, it adds that fraud element. In other words, how can it be free? And the whole idea is we want to work with operators. They are the, it's like the payments ecosystem. It's the 4-party system. We cannot survive without the mobile network operator. We need the mobile network operator to be a healthy, sustainable, good partners, but not at the expense of disrupting something that has been moving over, A2P SMS has been here 15-16 years, and the change that has been happening is so rapid that I don't think all the system ecos players can adjust and adapt quick enough. Some can, but at the end of the day, it's just the movement in price bases across the two channels are just so extreme. So I think reliability, consistency, accessibility, and some just some collaboration, because I've seen some success stories where operators have said, okay, well, we'll give up a couple of basis points in revenue on our A2P, even on the firewall. We're not going to hold the hold the party that's got the 3-year commit, whatever it is, and then they do a balancing effect. So I think if it's going to be a valid authentication channel for players for us to access through partners or directly with operators, it needs to be fair as well. No point me going and buying something at 6 cents or 20-second increments or flash calls, whatever, and then somebody's getting it for free and bundling it up just because he set up a voice connection in 2002.
Yeah, no, I think you kind of touched on that thing that kind of comes up again and again when people are talking about flash calling, is that sort of gold rush thing where everyone's just trying to come in and get the short-term profits as quickly as possible, not really caring that eventually the party is going to get shut down because it's just not really sustainable. So Kandara, I guess I'd like to know, what are some of the quality of service issues that go on as flash calling is exploding? I mean, what are the challenges with scaling it up? Simon mentioned the sort of billing issue, that it doesn't even appear as a billing. Is there anything you could speak to of like the wider effects it'll have as it grows?
So your question is about QoS or billing or both?
It's about, I guess, just in general, like what happens if flash calling keeps expanding at the rate that expanding? What effect will that have on the operators? You know what I mean? Will it affect quality of service?
To me, it's really a revenue issue, a quality of service, of course. But if the flash call doesn't succeed, it will go back through a regular channel. So, and usually OTPs, as an end user, you expect an OTP, but you're gonna get it in. You're gonna renew the request for an OTP and get it in one manner or the other. So QoS, yes, it's an issue, but the main issue is the revenue, not the customer experience, because there's not much to us, to our understanding, there's not much high expectations about OTPs in terms of customer experience. You will get it in some way or the other. Yeah, but the point, it's not critical. I mean, it's not a critical information that you really need to move forward when you work or something. You will just want it, and you will get it. But the issue is the revenue that is leaked, and the revenue issue between that. So if the figures, as I was saying, the whole industry is holding its breath to know and to see how the figures are going to work out. We see in some of our deployments with some MNO we have audited from 5% to more. Some of them, they talk about 20, 30. Some people we hear about 40%. We've seen 5-10%. Yes, we've seen them. Depending on the MNO size, it might be substantial or it might not be substantial. As for the answer to your question on charging, what is the billing? Of course, this is a negotiation you get with the one that uses flash call. You need to discuss and get into a negotiation and agree on the way you will capture the figure and on the way you will bill. But that's the whole point of it, and it is associated to your ability to actually disrupt. If you can disrupt, I mean, the flash call user will come and discuss with you. If you cannot disrupt, I mean, you have no weight in the balance to discuss about monetization. So this is a question, I guess, that comes with a technical point, is how to disrupt, and how to disrupt with a high level of confidence. I mean, how to block a number, to block an attempt with a high level of confidence by avoiding false positives. And I'm talking about the risk of doing that, because it's a risky venture when you do that. So you need really to share the risk with the customer. You need to make aware the customer and help him in the strategy that she will be putting in place, as Rangan was saying. I mean, it depends on, we have to help our customers, and we have to help ourselves, of course, really having a clear picture of the risk we're taking and the strategy we're taking in a calculated risk manner. But your question actually is linked to many technical items, and but that will be my first level answer to that.
Yeah. You don't have to go too deep on the technical. So Nadir, do you think that to some extent that the explosion we're seeing in flash calling is born out of rising A2P SMS prices, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's primarily one of the reasons why whoever is opting to go for these flash callings is going for it. I mean, from our own experience, I can tell you that we have seen in 2 countries when prices went up, we got complaints from those operators that they saw our number range being used to make flash calls towards their customer base. And these are live number range, by the way. So someone just spoofed the CLIs to suit those A numbers, to suit the OTP, and they just made the calls. So it's very clear that, you know, when an operator tries to, or an aggregator tries to maximize as much as he can in terms of the revenue that he wants to, it is going to have a falling impact. The other issue that also brings up or motivates flash calling are the regulatory changes that are happening, and which we were discussing earlier also. When you make a whitelisting of a sender ID process so difficult that it takes around 2 to 3 weeks to whitelist a sender ID, the enterprise sitting at the back end doesn't have the patience anymore, right? He says, what is this? I'm not applying for a nationality. I'm not applying for the passport of the company, or I'm not applying for a visa for the company. You're asking me for my company's CR, knock letter, my ID card, and a lot of other documents. I would just find some other way to send out those OTP messages to the customers that I want to. So it's a combination, it's a mix of a lot of other things that that encourage, you know, all these kind of innovations and disruptions that we're seeing in the market.
Yeah. What sort of challenges are you seeing, you know, in trying to identify that actual impact within your network?
See, the actual impact of flash calls, I mean, again, I have had this discussion in one of the webinars earlier also. I would like to see some real use cases which have been implemented. I mean, people say that we are going to monetize the flash calls. So we're in the voice carrier business. If somebody is monetizing a flash call, they would be sending out a price list saying that for flash calls, this is the cost that I'm going to charge you if it comes to my network. Because I'm a carrier also, I'm a voice carrier in the market, and I carry 200, 300 million minutes a month across the globe. So we haven't come across any special pricing from any of the carriers in the world, or any of those aggregators who are saying that, oh yes, we have deployed successful solution for this operator. But we are carrying the calls, and there's no special pricing or a special trunk that has to be created for this, a request that has come so far in the market. I mean, there are people on the call also, my colleagues, and also the participants who are viewing this. I would like to hear, you know, where has the solution of monetization been successfully deployed, and how are we quantifying, okay, I see these as genuine flash calls? Because like I said, our own live number ranges were being used to generate A2P SMS flash calls.
Exactly. Ranga, I want to come back to you. I'm just going to ask some questions for the Q&A section, but someone asked, what will the impact of RCS OTT message be on A2P? Will it be impacting the same way as chat APPs have on P2P?
I think there is a larger point which needs to be understood here. The larger point is, earlier, you know, when we had an issue of fraud and other things, you know, the people who want to make a profiteering or, you know, any other sort of things were in the play. Here, what's happening with the flash call is there are big technology giants who are, you know, bringing up this flash call as a, you know, solution to you know, make their application or any of that sort of things work. That means the challenge for operators or any such enterprises who are using the regular A2P or, you know, monetizing through that is now they need to face the larger guys. The larger guys who are coming up with various innovations and technologies as a disruption. What does it mean? Now, anywhere the telcos or, you know, enterprises who are making revenues, those are the target areas where, you know, a parallel will come up. Like a film industry was there, now OTT has come up as a parallel. Like, you know, A2P now, what, you know, flash call has come up. Probably there may be many other things which comes, you know, as you need more authentication and more, you know, digital disruptions are happening. There are a lot of other parallels which happen, which directly eats away into telecoms, you know, revenue. So this is a wake-up call, not just as a flash call as a only per se. It's a larger issue which needs to be addressed. Hence, when we speak of RCS or any other new technology which is coming in, that is not just coming in as a one of an alternative for existing OTP or any other things. It's coming for as a larger elephant, which starts eating away in various ways the telcos revenue. So that's the main concern was I was talking about the infra to ultra where the journey has begun. So to keep your monetization curve high, so there is a lot of innovation also equally needs to happen on the telco and enterprise to see how do we make customer experience easy, because some way customer experience was spoken about. I'll tell you customer experience per se, because Nadir highlighted right point, how difficult for any telemarketer or anybody to get onboarded with so much KYCs in place. While that is happening, there is an alternative equal route. So now at a smaller scale, flash call is giving an alert. Now it's for operators and everybody to look at how much is my monetization, where and all the alternative technologies can come and disrupt me. How do I be in the game? How do I make maybe equally competitive there? So with 5G coming in, imagine the amount of opportunity it opens up.
Yeah.
So telco per se, apart from installing few base stations, it may become redundant if things are not taken care of. I'm exaggerating a bit, but that's the concern, things. So in that way, I think while as a technologist, I always think I have an opportunity on both the sides. However the air swings, but for me on the important moot point of what Nadir and Kandara raised, it's the thing. It's happening at a larger scale because the other side, who is bringing up these technologies, are not small kids. They're also the big technology giants. Who are also playing it equally. Way who are disrupting the things.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd kind of like to get into how MNOs are willing to tackle flash calling, what stances they're willing to take. Before I talk to them directly, Simon, maybe we could get from you, what would be like your suggestions if you were to suggest to MNOs how to deal with flash calls? Do you have any sort of perspective on that?
I don't actually. I think it's a perspective that I do have is just that I don't want to see the same thing happen in A2P, right? So the operators have managed. I'm not from the operator, so my view is that voice revenues were lost. Late 2000s, the proliferation of data revenues, and then obviously, how do we claw back to the performance levels we had before? And so you see the A2P rates going through the roof, and the operators signing 2-3-year deals. The problem with the 2-3 year exclusivity deals, while they're great for the companies that are executing them, it basically locks the model in, adopting that model where it's cash in up front and rev share. That commercial model creates exclusivity for one provider, and then it's if it happens in 50 markets, that is what drives the churn in that. So again, like I said, I think some markets will be able to, some operators were able to offer flash calls, some won't. I think I just want to see a commercial model that is fair, the accessibility to compete, from the operators to invite all prospective players, and not just go where the easy money is. When I say easy money, I mean just in terms of commits and to hit numbers. But I think I just want to go back to something that Rangan said, is that just around on the question of RCS and that, I think there are some bigger macro themes that I think we need to talk about from large tech companies the large tech companies, what they care about is recurring customers and customers spending time on their platforms, reaching customers where they are. And that could be on their, and let's be honest, that's on the mobile device. And at the end of the day, they need to ensure that they're growing customers month on month. And if you think of the digital transformation journey that customers need to go on, I think themes like RCS will be prevalent in certain markets at different times. So to answer the person in the audience that asked the question, will RCS have an impact? Sure, yes. But how much and where and when will be dependent on where the big tech players are playing in those markets. In some cases, both operator and tech are teaming up and doing it together. So you see that. And then you have the proliferation of business messaging channels or chat, which from what I can say is there's an opportunity for telcos to partner. Now, most people say, well, companies like Clickatell that are, we're approved to be a business channel provider to plethora of channels. And we're one of the first companies in the world to partner with large telcos to deploy a lot of the services that they had onto a new channel. So from the initial impasse, you'd say, like, why would an operator, want to encourage alternative channels? There is a way to partner to bear and grow revenue that addresses the strategic objectives of the MNO at large, not just the VAS wholesale roaming division. So I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the operator on the call, so just for safety's sake, I won't. But we were able very successfully with a mobile network operator to actually bring airtime and data distribution within a business messaging channel, with authentication, with all those things, with payments, and actually talk to their digital strategic objective, which is in their 5-year, annual report, their 5-year objectives, ticking those boxes. Because that's really what it's about, is the mobile network operator going to achieve their ultimate strategic objectives in the end. Lower down, of course, the revenues and voice, and that those are contributing leading KPIs and performance factors. But I think, just to give completeness to the answer, I think RCS will be relevant at some point. I don't believe it's as important today globally. But yeah, from to go to your question there, Ross, on the operators, accessibility, consistency, notion of one API, that's the recurring theme at the GMSA. And just knowing that there's not some other weird model at play on some other sort of protocol that is bypassing all the good work that people are doing.
Consistency is the word of the day, I think. Thank you for that. Kandara, so coming back to you, so what approach is Orange taking today to tackle flash calling? Oh, you're on mute. Yeah.
Yes. So to answer your question, well, both approach. Well, it really depends on the strategy that the customer wants, and we're here to make him aware, as I said, of the risk, pro and cons for each choice she is making. So monetization is a scheme or disruption, but the key behind that is to be able to clearly identify and act on it, and with limiting the false positives. And what we see is that, I'm talking about curbing down the trend, but maybe success rate, good confidence, 40-50% of the suspected flash call, you will act on it. The remaining one, they are too risky, you cannot act on them. You will let them go because, I mean, you're sitting on the voice business as well, so you have to be careful in what you're doing. So any suspected flash call incoming, maybe 40-50% at max, you will be able to act on them. We're talking about curbing a trend and disrupting, making sure that the signal is made to the one that generates the flash call, that comes, bring them to the negotiation table. But that will be my answer. We have both approaches, depending on what the customer wants. Really, the cost and the risk of doing that have to be properly assessed.
Yeah. Nadir, the same question over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I was just reading a question on the chat put by Lorenzo also, which was addressed to Ranga and
Oh, to
myself.
you, yeah.
Yes, and I would like to take that question first. So Lorenzo,
Sure. Do you want to? I'll read out. Do you want to read out the question just so everyone can hear?
please, if you
Yeah. So
could.
I'll read it out for you. So flashes all the traits of fraud. Number one, deprives MNO of A2P revenue. Number two, unduly uses network resources. Number three, manipulates CLI. Four, makes it more difficult to detect other frauds such as Wangiri and CLI spoofing for OBR avoidance. Given this and the limited advantages Flash brings, why is the industry so hesitant to first and foremost call it as a fraud? That's a great question. Nadir, take it away.
Surely it's a great question. I think the industry is distributed in terms of addressing Flash calls. So there are a lot of people who call it a fraud. And there are a lot of people who say that this is not a fraud purely because, as an example, you have the OTT apps, which came many years before and which we as telcos have always been fighting, saying that they are taking my, using my network in terms of data. They're free to the customer, so I lose revenues, which the customer would have otherwise paid on a P2P SMS. But we don't consider them as fraud, we consider them as innovation, right? So there is one part of the industry that says this is fraud and you have to block it and stop it right away. Yes, you can try and block it and stop it, but people are going to find another way to do it. I mean, sending OTP on WhatsApp is also taking my revenue away, right? I don't get any revenue as an operator when an OTP gets terminated on a WhatsApp number, even if it is my own number. So that's where the industry is discussing, and that's why some people say that we're going to block it no matter what. And other half are saying we're going to monetize it. Let's see how we can monetize it, because they have accepted this. This is another source of income or revenue. Maybe not as attractive as the A2P SMS, because my prices of A2P SMS is at 20 cents, 25 cents. So that's where it is, Lorenzo. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, there's a question I've seen come up a few times now. I'll address it to the MNOs. Is about detecting flash calls, the actual act of detecting it. Kandara, could you speak to that, the challenges that it takes in monitoring it and detecting it?
So the question is about, it's whose question? Alok or
Alok was wondering, for modification to happen, operators need to detect and block unmonitored flash calls. How are they approaching detection?
Well, I think Rangan is going to explain better than me, but the detection is based on many criteria you elaborate. So call duration, I mean, there are many ways, I mean, 20, 30, 40 criteria. And then you will do your math with your figures, and you will have a suspicion rate over the flash call suspicion, some confidence rate. And then when the confidence rate is up to a level, you will flag it as a flash call, and you will block the number, or you can also manipulate. There are many ways to disrupt. So I'm not going to get into the technicals of that, but to stay general enough, 40 criteria, do the math, detect, take a confidence level, act on it, and then the beginning, it's labor intensive. I mean, you can try to help with some algorithm, with some automated script running over the figures in real time. But more and more then now, I think all providers are starting to work on AI and try to populate the database and train the libraries, train their AI, their neural networks, and their applications, so that the bot, the automated stuff takes over. But I think we're not yet there. I mean, and I'm actually asking a good question to Rangan, because I think we're not yet there. We still have to have this huge database of cases to make the AI work. So there's lots of marketing out of AI, to me, it's still a labor intensive at this stage, very labor intensive. And so you had a question about how to detect. Well, I'm not going to elaborate on the criteria, the 40, 50 criteria, and you're going to use about how you also act. There are many ways of acting. I mean, disrupting is, many ways. And the key behind that is really the analysis you can provide, the capacity of analysis that you can provide. And it's, as I said, labor intensive, very labor intensive.
Yeah. Rangan, do you have anything to add there, or?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
marketing. Otherwise, just marketing. It's not working.
Yeah.
It's not really working. It's just doing stuff. But if you want to reach the 50, 40%, confidence level on acting on what you get in, you really need to get lots of analysts on board. Lots of analysts.
Okay, I think let me probably combine Lawrence and Alok question into one, and then I'll try to probably answer in a little elaborative way. Yes, when Lawrence says, can we declare it as a fraud or not because they're consuming the resources? See, there are two aspects to it. The morality per se, or the per se of you saying, this is my network without my consent. How can somebody use it, to their benefit without me being aware of it? Yes, it's wrong. Then it's a fraud. But can you bring it in a legal framework? Then the lot has to be considered. At this stage, there is nothing which identifies flash call as fraud. That's a reality. Let's accept it. But that nothing stops from operators to call it out and say this particular event is blocking or diminishing my revenue. What needs to be done technically? That way, to answer Alok's question, yes, for example, in Techlabs, we have worked very hard in terms of how do we develop the AIML based solution, and which we are sort of deployed a couple of places, which is giving results. So technology, you need to adapt it. You need to find an innovative way. How do you give the picture to the operator that technology is with you if at all, if you want to identify it. Now the question is, once you have the insights and data, whether you strategize it to monetize it or deterrence act, that's up to the operator. But he has to himself first equip with the insights of that. As Kandara earlier mentioned, with less of false positive, can I have the information that how many people are calling me? Give me insights how many people are eating. What are the other alternative ways where either I make a friend with for flash call, or I make an enemy out of it? That's a call which operator has to take with the help of a technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Simon, I was wondering, do you have an opinion on the regulator's role in all this? Do you think the regulator needs to have a more general approach to dealing with flash calling, or?
No, I think the regulators have a role to play in the industry. I think in terms of code of conducts and those things, and I think the regulators already do that role. We've got various platforms such as MEF, GSMA, and the like. So I think there are various bodies in that, and then within each country, you've got regulators that are applying codes of conduct and things. So not more bureaucracy, without saying not yes to compliance. I think compliance and rules, regulations is always a great thing as long as it applies to everybody. Golden principle, and it's like everybody follows the rules. Is there possibly the regulators could have a bigger voice on this? Maybe, but at the end of the day, each operator needs to operate on their operational and strategic objectives. And then they're driven from the country that then the laws and things that are set, those things. But I think, yeah, just the feedback from our guest today, my fellow Palinists, is that there is a decision to block or not and disrupt or whatever. There's so much, and within that the flash call's been terminated but he disrupted. or it's again, that word consistency comes back. But on the regulators, I don't see how the regulators are going to influence the trend that's already happening, that it's in play at the moment. By the time the regulators get around to the problem or documenting or advising, the next auth channel is going to be for topic at MEF.
Yeah, exactly. So we're coming up with the last 3 minutes of our webinar. Maybe Nadir, it'd be great to hear. Do you have any predictions on where this is all going? Do you think that the flash calling will kind of implode on itself, and where will that leave A2P, SMS?
Well, I think messaging has been a very robust technology or system on its own, and I think it will survive. It has survived a lot of things.
It's
I'm
been
sure it will
declared
survive
dead before, and it's
yes.
made it. So yeah.
Yes, it was. It was never dead. By the way, it was just getting to grow up to be a big monster of revenue, which operators want. I don't think. I don't think that A2P messaging is going to go down. We talk about RCS, we talk about all other things. These are all going to complement and just build up as either additional sources of revenue for the operators or as a headache for the operators, the way we see it. Flash calling, as I said, I don't foresee that flash calling is going to go have those growth numbers which are being predicted right now by various bodies and organizations. There is something else which is coming up, like the WhatsApp or the Open API discussions that are going on within the GSMA, which will redefine or which will, rationalize and bring back sanity to this madness which is happening right now. That's my
Thank
point.
you.
Thank you.
And perfect. We have 1 more minute left. So maybe Kandara, do you have any advice for any MNOs out there on dealing with this issue?
Well,
in a snappy minute, if you can.
Okay.
Try
well, advice is really don't listen to what everybody says about flash call. I would say make your own judgment, and because maybe it's a scarecrow, maybe it's not. I mean, everybody's waiting to know how the future is going to be, but make your own judgment, and when the figures are nice, they are too nice to be true. When they are too big, sometimes they're too big to be true. So that will be my one word, my few word sentence.
Perfect. No, that closes it, rounds it up nicely. Thank you guys so much. Rangan, thank you for being a great speaker. Thank you to my operators. Thank you, Simon, as well. And thank you for GTS for supporting this webinar. I hope you guys learned something, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you now. Bye-bye.